Greetings, fellow airsoft enthusiast. This video will teach you how to play Tactical Shenanigans, the airsoft card game. Yes, we know this is a silly name. Fortunately, it's a temporary one, until we come up with something better. Before you learn how to play, you need to know about the cards you'll be playing with. There are 5 different card types: Players, Equipment, Cover, Event, and Mishap. This is a player card. As you might imagine, these cards represent individual airsoft players on a team. Each player is assumed to have a basic loadout consisting of an airsoft replica, protective gear, magazines, and BBs. The cards enable you to earn victory points for your team by shooting the opposing team's players. While we're here, let's look at the anatomy of a card. Title: this is the name of the card. ADS values: these are the card's attack, defense, and suppress values or modifiers. For a player card, they will always be values. The text box contains the abilities and flavor text. This is an equipment card. Specifically, this is a replica. Although each player is assumed to have basic equipment, replicas represent special airsoft guns. Replicas are different from other equipment in that they can be used instead of the player's ADS stats to attack or suppress. Note that this replica equipment has no defense stat. Though it is possible for replica equipment to modify the defense stat, replica equipment cannot be used instead of the base defense ADS stat. Every replica equipment falls into a different category. They are either pistol, rifle, SMG, LMG, sniper, exotic, or grenade launcher. This sometimes has an effect on which players can or can't equip a replica. This is an equipment card. This represents specialized gear that a player might use. Equipment adds abilities, actions, and modifies or replaces a player's base ADS values. A player is not limited in regard to equipment. That is, a player may equip as many equipment cards as are available, though equipment is uncommon enough that it is best to spread it out among multiple players. Note the plus and minus characters in front of the ADS values. This means that the player's ADS values are modified. This is a cover card. This represents things that on the field that a player can hide behind. Like equipment, cover adds abilities or actions and modifies or replaces a player's ADS values. It will almost always add to defense. Cover does not behave like equipment, however. Depending on the cover, multiple players may be attached at the same time. Players can move into or out of cover if a player attached to cover is successfully shot and goes to respawn, that cover remains in play and may be used by other players. In some cases, players from both teams may be attached to the same cover at the same time. Cover as a game mechanic also allows the field to take shape over the course of a game, as progressively more cover is placed on the field. Event cards represent various happenings on the field, including good luck, tactics, and morale. Some will have an immediate effect when drawn. Some will attach to players. Some may be placed in a team's hand for use at an opportune moment. Others do nothing at all, but might perhaps be placed on the field anyway, face down so that the opposing team has no idea what the card is or what it might do. One of these cards is drawn each time a player is activated. Together with the mishap cards, event cards form their own 60-card deck. This is a mishap card. Mishap cards represent accidents or bad luck that might occur during an actual airsoft game. These devious and unfortunate cards are randomly shuffled into the event deck so that the team drawing a card never knows if one will turn up. Mishaps are always negative, though it is always possible that one might be employed to a team's advantage if used in an unexpected way. Possible, but not very likely. Mishaps are always attached to the player who they were drawn for, and have an immediate effect. Some are removed according to criteria listed on the card. Others are permanent unless another card allows for their removal. The game runs on these three stats. Attack represents a player's ability to successfully shoot at another player. Defense represents a player's ability to avoid being shot. Suppress represents a player's ability to interfere with what another player is trying to do. Many factors determine the efficacy of an airsoft player's actions on the field. A host of factors have subtle influences over the ability of a player to hit an opponent in a single shot. There is no practical way to take all of them into account. Thus, the ADS values do not represent absolutes but functions of probability. The numbers are not specific values, but rather quantities of d6 dice to be rolled in order to determine the actual value. A value of 2, for instance, means 2 dice are rolled and the results are added together to calculate the value. In the case of this attack value, the actual result will be anywhere between 2 and 12. A value of 3 would result in a calculated value between 3 and 18. When multiple dice are rolled, there is always the possibility of a critical success or a critical fail. 3 or more dice rolling 1 is a critical miss. 3 or more dice all rolling 6 is a critical hit. Critical misses always fail, and critical hits always succeed, regardless of the opposing rolls and calculated value. The field is the physical area in which the gameplay takes place. Any cards on the field but not in the deck or used pile are in play. The base set contains a total of 200 cards. 140 are the players, equipment, and cover. 60 are the event and mishap cards. The 140 player, equipment, and cover cards are shuffled and dealt randomly into 2 60-card arsenal decks and a 20-card victory deck. The 60 event and mishap cards are shuffled together to form the event deck. All decks are placed on the field face down. Each team controls one arsenal deck. The victory and event decks are placed to one side where both teams can draw from them when necessary. Attack, defense, and suppression are the 3 core game mechanics. How they work will now need to be explained by a practical example. For this lesson, we will use a rifleman with an equipped G&G ARP-9, an outlaw, and an SMG gunner. If I may say so, that SMG gunner certainly is a handsome fellow. Normally, both the rifleman and SMG gunner would draw an event, but this is a simplified example, so we won't bother with that, or with cover and additional equipment. During normal gameplay, this example, plus drawing the event cards, would constitute the rifleman's turn. The rifleman has an attack value of 2, but is also equipped with a replica with an attack value of 3. Additionally, when it is equipped to a rifleman, 3 is added to the attack value after the results of dice rolls are calculated. The rifleman will be attacking the outlaw. The outlaw has a defense value of 5, making it a difficult target, but not an impossible one. Team 1 announces that the rifleman will be shooting at the outlaw, An event would have been drawn at the beginning of Rifleman's turn, but we have dispensed with that. At this point, Team 2 decides that there's a chance the Rifleman might be successful. She announces that she'll be suppressing using the SMG Gunner. SMG Gunner has a suppress value of 4, which gives it a decent chance of suppressing Team 1's Rifleman. Normally an event card would be drawn for the SMG Gunner at this point, but this has been dispensed with as well. Both teams make their rolls. Rifleman rolls 3d6 for a total of 11, to which 3 is added, resulting in 13. SMG Gunner rolls 4d6, resulting in a spectacularly bad result of 6. Since Rifleman's 13 is greater than SMG Gunner's 6, SMG Gunner is unable to suppress the Rifleman. Since that failed, Team 2 now makes the defense roll for the Outlaw. The result is 15. Outlaw's defense result of 15 is greater than Rifleman's attack result of 13. Rifleman fails. Both Rifleman and SMG Gunner are now exhausted. To indicate this, they are turned on their sides at a 90-degree angle. Gameplay is divided into rounds, which are subdivided into turns. A round consists of each player on the field taking a turn one at a time, alternating between teams. To begin the game, each team draws the top 7 cards of his or her arsenal. These 7 cards form that team's hand. Each team ensures that there are at least 2 player cards in that hand. If there are not, the hand is discarded, the arsenal is reshuffled, and another hand is drawn until there are. Each team then attaches any equipment to the player cards as he or she sees fit and places those player cards onto the field along with any cover that may have been drawn, or into respawn if the team doesn't want to throw them onto the field just yet. The cards have been placed on the field. There is no cost involved for attaching to cover or equipping equipment. If you have it in your hand, you can use it. Keep in mind that you can only equip and attach cards to players in your hand or in respawn. A player that remains on the field at the end of a round cannot equip or unequip equipment, nor can a player remaining on the field attach or detach from cover except during that player's turn. The first turn is now ready to begin. Note that each team only has 6 cards on the field. Each team still has 1 card in their hand. Note the Grenadier in respawn. Grenadier has a defense value of 0, which makes it a guaranteed hit if anyone shoots it. Team 1 is likely saving the Grenadier for a future round where better cover is available. In the attack, defense, and suppress example, you are shown a stripped-down turn. A turn is where a player takes an action. During a turn, a player will do the following things depending on its abilities, equipment, and cover. Activate. The player taking the turn is identified by its team. Draw event. The first thing a player does when activated is to draw an event card. Move. The player may detach from or attach to cover available. Action or free action. Action causes the player to be exhausted or partially exhausted. Free actions do not. Shoot. The most common action. A player attempts to shoot another player, hopefully but not necessarily on the opposing team. This plays out as in the previous example. The only thing to be added is to deal with actions and events. Medic has 2 different actions available, one of which can be performed during its turn. Specifically, Medic is able to use an action that will remove a mishap card from a player on the field. Medic may use this action instead of shooting, but cannot do both. Medic's second action allows a player that would go to respawn to remain in play. This action cannot be used during Medic's turn as the game mechanics do not allow for that. This action is instead used during another player's turn as a response to a player being shot. Both actions may be used this way. An event is drawn whenever a player is activated or performs an action during another player's turn. Whenever this happens, that event's card's instructions are immediately carried out. Some events attach to players. Some cause a player to perform an action if possible. Some are placed into your hand for later use at your discretion. Randomly mixed into the event deck are mishaps. These are like events, only in a bad way. They too are immediately carried out and often much harder to be rid of. Unless otherwise specified, mishaps always attach to the player for which they were drawn. In the case of conflicting rules, mishaps always have priority. The criteria for winning is very simple. Each time a player is shot, the opposing team draws a single victory card from the victory deck. This continues until there are no more victory cards to draw or until one team has an agreed upon quantity of victory cards. When no more victory cards can be drawn, the game is over and the player with the most victory cards wins. A player may extend the game after this point by donating cards from his or her arsenal to the victory deck, thus allowing for the game to continue at the cost of reducing his or her options. As with the actual game of airsoft, Tactical Shenanigans allows for specialized game modes beyond the base game. The playtest manual currently includes 3: the bomb, Alamo, and capture the flag. This is intended as a basic introduction and will not go into these modes. However, by employing custom objectives, rules, and starting conditions, new game modes may be devised. Alamo, for instance, limits one team to 7 players in 2 specific covers, and the other team to 3 specific different covers. This is by no means a strategy guide. The game does, however, allow for strategies and tactics. How do you tell the difference? Remember the quote: "If it's prophylactic and emphatically didactic, then it's not a tactic." As a general rule, it is advisable to try and shoot the most significant threat that is not exhausted. This is because an exhausted player can't shoot anyone. Players like grenadiers and snipers are, bereft of their equipment and cover, glass cannons. A sniper is the most dangerous player in the game, but has no defense whatsoever, making it doubly desirable to take it out if you can. Effects are very useful cards to have in your hand. The right ones can stop an enemy player in its tracks or even cause it to shoot one of its own teammates, but hoarding them can be detrimental after a certain point. At the beginning of the next round, each team will draw back up to a hand of 7 cards, and if your hand is full of events, you'll be unable to draw any additional players, equipment, or cover. For the same reason, if you're hanging on to players you don't want to use yet, consider playing them to respawn. They can hang out there where it's safe, they can be placed onto the field from there, and each one you place in respawn is another card that you can draw at the beginning of the next round. This presentation has not dealt with any advanced or complex scenarios and is not intended to make you an expert in tactical shenanigans. Nevertheless, you should by now have a reasonable idea how the game is played and be able to play a basic game of your own with the aid of the playtest manual, which contains detailed instructions, specific steps of turns, rounds, and actions, and decisions on unforeseen circumstances, like who gets the victory point if a player shoots a teammate. Remember, players take turns, teams agree on who goes first in a round, and at the beginning of a round, both teams draw back up to 7 cards. Happy airsoft shenanigans!